Good day everyone. Today I will be presenting a topic that often causes debate among teachers, students, and parents: the use of non-academic factors in grading. These include effort, attendance, and attitude. Now, we will explore whether these elements should be included in academic grades and how different grading approaches affect the fairness and accuracy of the grades we give to students. Do the efforts, attitudes, and attendance could be included in grade? According to Macmillan, mixing behavior and academic performance can be misleading because doing so weakens the accuracy of grades. But in actual classrooms, many teachers still consider this factor to encourage responsible behavior and discipline. The first factor is efforts. It refers to student work habits, their persistence toward tasks, their willingness to participate, and the amount of time or energy they commit. Many teachers reward effort because it promotes motivation and help build a positive learning environment. However, experts warn that grading efforts reduces the validity of grades. Why? Because a student can work very hard but still fail to meet academic standards. This emphasizes that while effort is important, it does not automatically equal mastery. That's why many recommend reporting effort separately. Here's a table shows two sides of debate about whether teachers should include efforts in student grades. Supporters argue that effort encourages motivations, helps students stay engaged, and rewards those who work hard even if they struggle academically. Because effort is under student control, grading is it can promote positive learning behaviors and may help raise grades for hardworking students. On the other hand, critics say that effort is very hard to define and measure consistently. Teachers might judge effort differently, and students can sometimes fake appearing busy without truly learning. Grading effort may benefit more assertive students, and because teachers vary in how much they count effort, grading can become inconsistent. Finally, some argue that focusing on effort may send the message that trying is enough, even when students aren't actually mastering the material. In this scenario, Maria is a grade 8 student who participates actively, submits her homework on time, and tries her best. However, she consistently scores low on quizzes and performance tasks, usually around 65 to 70%. During a parent-teacher conference, her mother says, "Mom, my daughter works so hard. She studied every night. Why is her grade so low? She deserves at least an 85." So, based on this scenario, Macmillan emphasizes that effort and achievement must be differentiated. High effort does not necessarily mean high mastery, and raising grades based on efforts reduces the validity of the achievement grade. The purpose of the grade is to communicate what Mariah actually knows and can do, not how hard she tried. However, effort should still be acknowledged because it affects motivation and can guide support strategies. So, for recommendation, uh, keep effort in a separate conduct learning, behavior rating, or narrative comment. Explain to parent that academic grade reflects mastery of competences, while effort is recognized separately. And give Mariah target remediation and continuous feedback since her strong effort indicates readiness to improve. Let's proceed to attitudes. Attitudes refers to student behavior and disposition toward learning. This includes cooperation, respectfulness, attentiveness, classroom conduct, and willingness to participate. Some teachers include attitude in reading because they want to encourage good behavior. However, academic grade should measure performance, not personality or discipline. Just like effort, attitude is something that should be reported separately through conduct ratings or classroom behavior notes. Like for example, in this scenario, Angel is intelligent and performs well, usually scoring above 90% in math. However, she is talkative and easily distracted. Her teacher, irritated by the repeated disruptions, decided to deduct 5 points from her quarterly grade to teach her a lesson. So, in this scenario, Macmillan emphasizes that achievement grades should be free from behavior penalties. Angel's behavior is a discipline issue, not an academic one. Lowering her academic grade distorts the meaning of the grade and fails to accurately communicate her mastery of math. Grades become less valid when they include behavioral judgment. So, for recommendation, keep behavior in a separate conduct rating or classroom behavior log. Apply classroom management strategies instead of grade penalties, and discuss expectation with Angel and give structured behavior goals. Let's proceed to attendance. Attendance includes presence in class, punctuality, and participation in daily learning activities. Some teachers include attendance as part of the grade to encourage discipline and reduce classroom interruptions. However, like effort and attitude, attendance is not a measure of what a student knows. So here, Macmillan emphasizes that grade should show achievement, not compliance. Having absences may impact learning, but it should not directly reduce the academic grade. In this scenario, Jomar frequently misses class because he takes care of his younger brother. So his teacher deducts 10 points from his grade as a penalty for poor attendance. As a result, Jomar ends up with a failing grade, even though his performance in tests and tasks averaged 26%. So, in this scenario, Macmillan warns that attendance should not be directly mixed with academic grades because academic grades should communicate mastery, not circumstances. Tumor absences influence his access to learning opportunities, but they did not measure his understanding of competences. By deducting points, the teacher confused behavior or compliance with achievement. So now, let's proceed to the basis of comparison. When we assign grades, what exactly are we comparing? So there are three major bases. First is the student reference, norm reference, and the standard base. Let's discuss first the individual student reference comparison. So in this approach means that we evaluate a student performance by comparing it to their own previous performance or aptitude rather than to a fixed standard or to other students. So according to Brookhart, this method looks at how much the student has improved over time. So there are two key considerations in this type of comparison, which are the prior performance and aptitudes. In prior performance, here the teacher asks, how was this student performing before? We look at the earlier outputs, quizzes, participation or tasks. Then we check whether the student has shown growth. For example, if a student used to struggle with solving equations but can now solve more problems with fewer errors, this improvement becomes the basis for the grade. Next is we consider is aptitude. So in this, the teacher asks, what is the learner capable of, giving their starting point. So some students begin with the lower readiness or different abilities. In individual reference reading, we acknowledge their personal capacity and measure success in relation to what they can realistically achieve. So, in summary, in this approach, it focuses on learning progress rather than fixed standards. But there is common issue when a student reference as a basis for grade. Growth-based grading sometimes lead to a grade inflation or perceived unfairness, especially when struggling students receive higher grades than consistently high performance simply because they improve more. So for example, in this scenario, in a grade 8 Filipino class, the teacher uses pretest and post-test to measure improvement. Two students show very different patterns. Si Mark is 30% yung nakuha niya sa pretest, but 70% naman sa post-test. And si Jasmine naman is 88% yung nakuha niya sa pretest, but in the post-test is 92%. Si Mark is nag-show ng 40% improvement, while si Jasmine naman is 4% lang. So, a teacher gives 92 for Mark because for his significant growth, and 88 naman kay Jasmine for minimal improvement. So, the Jasmine parent is complain because she asks why is her child grade lower when she performed better overall. So, in this scenario, Macmillan explains that student reference grading values improvement, but it cannot unintentionally penalize achievers. High achievers. Students who already perform well naturally have less room for dramatic increases, making them appear to have less growth. While growth-based grading supports motivation for struggling learners, it must not override actual achievement. So, for a recommendation, use growth measure as supplementary information, not the primary basis of grades. Communicate early. Improvement influence comment feedback, not final grades. Provide evidence of learning gains through portfolio, not grade inflation, and acknowledge high performers with achievement-based mastery descriptor. Let's proceed to norm reference grading, or grading by comparison to other students. Norm reference grading means that a student grade is determined by comparing their performance with the performance of other students in class. In this system, the grade reflects how well a student did relative to their classmate, not how well they mastered a specific standard or competencies. This approach is especially useful when ranking or differentiation is required, such as admission to competitive programs, scholarship, or selection for honors or special awards. It clearly identifies who performed better or lower compared to the group, making it helpful in the situation where only a limited number of stats or recognition are available. However, there's an issue in norm reference grading. It creates inequality because student grades depend on peers, not a standard. So, like for example, in this scenario, in a STEM section, most students score between 85 to 94 on biology exam. The teacher applies a grading curve. So, even the student who scored 90% receive only a B or C because so many classmates scored high. So, the student complained, Ma'am, pasado naman kami lahat. Bakit kailangan bumaba grade namin dahil nag-aas yung iba? So, in this scenario, Macmillan stated that norm reference grading is inappropriate for standard-based system because it ignores actual mastery, creates unnecessary competition, lower fairness and motivation, and punishes students in strong classes. So, in this case, the recommendation is avoid grading on a curve unless required. For example, in some college programs, and also use criteria reference standard, so every student can achieve a high grade if mastery is met. Compare student to learning targets, not to each other, and provide a clear cut-offs aligned to competencies. Next is let's proceed to the standard as basis for grading. So in this approach means that students are graded based on a predetermined standard or learning criterion. In other words, we do not compare one student to another. Instead, we compare each other's performance to a clear, fixed set of expectations. So in this approach, the teacher does not ask how did the student perform compared to their classmates. Instead, the question becomes, did this student meet the standard? The focus is whether on learning how to demonstrate the required knowledge, skill, or competencies regardless of how others perform. So, predetermined standard as basis. The standard used here are already defined often in the curriculum, learning competencies, or performance indicators. These standards describe what mastery looks like. So grading becomes more transparent because both students and teachers knows know exactly what the target is. So in this approach, it focuses on mastery. So how well and how consistently a student can demonstrate a skill or understanding of content. So the main idea is students should be assessed on what they truly know and can do, not on effort alone, behavior, or comparison with others. Common issue in standard-based grading is that uh, students and parents sometimes think standard-based grading is strict or unfair because they expect grades to reflect effort or rank, not competencies. Like for example, in this scenario, a grade 6 English class uses a rubrics aligned to learning competencies for paragraph writing. So a hardworking student, Anna, submit all requirements but meets only some criteria. She gets 78 despite high efforts. Another student, Brian, who puts minimal efforts but writes well, gets 92. So, Anna mother confront the teacher. Ma'am, bakit mas mataas grade nung isa nung hindi nagsusumikap? Hindi ba dapat effort ang tinitignan? So, in these cases, Macmillan emphasizes that standard-based grading measures mastery, not attitude or effort. Grade must reflect whether the student met the learning criteria, not how hard the student tried. This ensures fairness and preserves the validity of grades as measurement of achievement. Parents often assume grades should reward compliance or behavior, so miscommunication frequently occurs. So, recommended teacher action in this kind of cases, you should present the rubric before the activity and explain what meeting the standard looks like. Clarify that efforts, attitude, and participation are important but graded separately. Share samples of mastery level work to parents and students and provide a descriptive feedback. Here's a table showing the differences among the different basis for grading. Sa interpretation, lagi tandaan that in individual student preference, scores compared to student prior performance or aptitude, meaning that a grade is based on the progress of the students. Sa non-reference naman is compared to the performance of other students. So, ibig sabihin, the grade is based on the the performance of other students. Sa standard-based naman is compared to the predetermined standard and criteria. So, ibig sabihin that the grade is uh, the competencies, learning standard are the basis for grading. Sa student reference, the use of scores are used to measure individual growth over time. So the focus uh, is how much has a student improved compared to before. So effect on motivation. This often motivates students to improve since they compete with themselves rather than classmates. The strength of this basis is it provides good formative feedback. Students understand how much they progress, encourages reflection on personal learning. Sa weaknesses naman is no common standard for judging performance and hard to determine true achievement level because a student may improve but still not meet expected competencies and aptitude and prior knowledge are difficult to measure accurately. Sa norm reference naman is uh, sa use of scores. Scores are used to rank and sort students relative to one another. Sa effect ng motivation is motivation depends on the comparison group. Can become competitive, high performers may feel confident, struggling students may feel discouraged. The strength of this basis is that it creates a difficult assessment that challenge students, useful for ranking, scholarships, and competitive selections. So weaknesses naman is grade depend on group performance, not on mastery. Some students will always be at the bottom, even if they met learning goals. And also, it is not appropriate for standard-based or competency-based education. Sa standard-based naman, the use of scores describe the level of performance achieved based on specific standards or competencies. The effect of motivation encourages students to focus on meeting learning goals, help foster a growth mindset because students know clearly what they need to improve. The strength of this approach is that it matches student performance to clearly defined learning targets. It reduces unhealthy competitions and it produces more valid and meaningful grades, especially for curriculum-based assessment. Ang weaknesses naman nito is that it requires teacher to create a clear, measurable standard, which is challenging. And in ensuring consistency in judging mastery can be difficult across teachers or schools. So let's proceed to approaches to grading. There's various there's various tools or systems teachers use when assigning grades, such as letters, percentage, rubrics, standard base, and narrative rewards. Let's discuss first the letter grades. Letter grade is a symbol like using A, B, C, D, F to represent a student level of performance. So the letter grades provide a quick overall summary of a student achievement in a subject. It gives a general idea of how well the student performed based on the teacher's evaluation. But there is a limitation of letter grades. It's only general information. Letter grades do not give specific details about a student's strength, weaknesses, or the exact skills they have mastered. May be influenced by non-performance factors. Sometimes effort, attitude, participation, or behavior can affect the grade, even if the letter grade is supposed to measure academic performance only. Variation in teacher expectation. So different teachers may have different standard or grading practices. Because of this, the same letter grade can be represented slightly different levels of achievement depending on the teachers. Like for example, in this scenario, in an NSH English class, Ella received a B in the second quarter. Her mother asked the teacher, "Ma, what does B mean? Is my daughter good at writing, reading, or speaking?" The teacher struggles to explain because she simply converted elaborated percentage in a letter without touching descriptor. So, Macmillan explains that letter grades compress complex performance into a broad categories, making them efficient but often ambiguous. Without clear descriptors or rubrics, parents and students cannot tell which skills need improvement. This reduces the communication value of grade, one of the core functions of grade. So, in this case, recommended teacher action is to attach performance descriptors. Example, B is equal to meet standard, demonstrate solid understanding with minor errors, and also provide a short skills breakdown. Example, reading meets uh, meets writing approaches. So, whenever converting numerical to letters, communicate cut-off and meaning clearly at the start of the term. Next is percentage correct or numerical grades. So, it commonly used for objective tests, for example, 75% or 92%. So, it is easy to calculate, record, and convert it into letter grades, and can be used for all assessment, though not common for essays. So, ang limitation nito is that a small number of points lost can drastically lower the grades. Higher dependence on test difficulties uh, does not necessarily reflect mastery. So, ibig sabihin, percentage not mas equal to mastery. So, for example, high percentage is not always tell us that the student has a high mastery in the specific topic. Let's proceed to percentage correct or numerical grades. So, a percentage grade shows how many items a student answered correctly out of the total number of items. Example, 75% or 92%. It is most commonly used in objective tests such as multiple choice or true or false exams. Advantages of this uh, approach is easy to communicate and record. Teachers can quickly determine the score by dividing correct answers 2 by total items. Simple to convert into letter grades. Percentage can be easily matched to grade. Example, 90 to 100 is equal to A, and it is applicable to most assessment. While typically used for objective tests, it can be used for any type of assessment, though it is less appropriate for essays or performance tasks. The limitation of these approaches is that the small point losses can greatly reduce the grade. Missing just a few items, especially in short quizzes, can lead to a big drop in percentage. Highly dependent on test difficulties. A student may appear to perform poorly if the test is unusually difficult, even if they understand the material. Does not reflect actual mastery. A percentage shows how many items were correct, but not which specific skills the student has mastered or not mastered. Percentage is not equal to mastery. A high percentage does not always mean deep understanding, and a low percentage does not always mean lack of learning. One of the problem of percentage correct is like just like in this scenario, Sir Dan gives a 50-item quiz in science worth 50% of the quarterly grade. A student, Paulo, performs well in all activities, but gets only 28 out of 50 in the quiz because of anxiety. His final grade drops to 78% of sitting his friend. So, percentage can create misleading impression of mastery when a single assessment heavily influences the grade or item difficulty varies significantly. Macmillan warns that numerical systems look precise but may not be valid, especially when they fail to reflect actual competency. Paulo low grade does not accurately represent his consistent mastery.